Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for this installment of Talking VoIP with Datagate. I'm Mark Loveys, CEO of Datagate Telecom Billing, and in today's episode, we're talking with Laura Johns, founder and CEO of the Business Growers. This episode will delve into the challenges MSPs face in transitioning from reliance on referrals to implementing scalable marketing strategies. We'll explore how AI integration, strategic differentiation, and trust building can transform lead generation and conversion processes. The discussion will highlight practical steps MSPs can take to modernize their marketing efforts and achieve sustainable growth. Laura, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to see you and be on the other side of the podcast screen today. Looking forward to our conversation.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So Laura, in your webinar last month, you noted that referrals don't work like they used to. What do you think caused that shift, and how can MSPs make the referrals work by treating them like a system instead of a lucky break?
Yes, that's a great question. So I feel like as I have just entered in the last couple of years, my 40s, just nothing really works like it used to, right? I feel like that's just something that we can say as a whole, but specifically with referrals and MSPs, you build a lot of times your business, especially those first few years, off of referrals. And the shift has happened because buyers are more informed. We really have a lot more out there resource-wise. They're making decisions independently. So before, let's say back in the 90s, for example, if someone got a referral, they take it at face value and then give you a call. Whereas now, even with a glowing recommendation, they're still having the opportunity and taking it to go to Google, checking out your website, reading reviews, comparing you to other companies. Really, that referral sometimes just kicks off the process. So if your digital presence doesn't back up that referral, then you certainly have the potential to lose the business. So to make referrals work, and what I talked about on my recent webinar, is you've got to have a system. That means building a process, dedicated pipeline, asking at the right time, automation, and even gamifying it some with incentives and referral programs. You can't just sit there and wait on your pipeline to hit that referral every time. A lot more of a gap between the actual referral and the deal getting done.
Wow. And you've worked with a lot of MSPs who've been stuck in the referral only loop. So what does it take and what does it look like when they finally start to build a repeatable, scalable marketing engine? And what's usually the trigger that gets them there?
Yeah, so really eliminating, we have to change our mindset, basically. If you're a managed services provider and you are stuck, I call it the referral rut sometimes, because that resonates with a lot of MSPs. You have to stop going from being reactive, which is really, honestly, the way that a lot of organizations are, not just MSPs. But when it comes to referrals, it's, oh, great, let's add that to the pipeline. We really have to shift our mindset and be more proactive, and actually create that system. So a clear sense of, hey, who do we want more referrals from? Because you might have that referral that comes in that consistently from maybe it's a partner and it's a terrible referral every time, or it's costing you more than it's making you. And you want to really make sure that hey, who are our best referrals going to come from, and make sure that you actually build a system around qualified referrals, right? Not just taking what comes your way. So the trigger, you asked what is usually the trigger that gets them there. The trigger is almost always pain. Losing that really big client that might account for 20% of your monthly recurring revenue. That might happen, and then you suddenly feel exposed and you realize my pipeline is empty, word of mouth is not cutting it. And so those moments are what really forces an MSP owner to ask, like, what would it look like to generate referrals on purpose, or leads in general on purpose? So this is where you're stuck in this referral rut. Your pipeline is dependent on referrals, and then you lose a big client, and then you're like, oh wait, I need something that's repeatable. So that's really usually where, honestly, I start engaging, where they might be calling me. They start investing in their marketing, building authority, getting their messaging right, their marketing systems right. That's kind of where we come in. But when you get in that referral rut long enough, and then you have a big customer that drops you, that's when you realize, hey, I need a system in place for both referrals and for lead generation.
Yeah, true. Look, one of the biggest challenges MSPs face is sounding like just another IT company. What are some of the ways you use to help clients message that actually gets prospects to take notice of them, and common messaging mistakes that you're seeing out there?
So that is a great question. A lot of times these, MSP, actually in my last webinar, if you look up the business growers on YouTube, you'll see our webinar on differentiation. And one of the things that I pulled up on the screen, none of them were our clients, but we did a screenshot of about a dozen or so MSPs and their websites. At the very top, it says your trusted IT team or your trusted IT partner. And that kind of goes to show that what we think we're doing is differentiating ourselves, but really we sound just like everybody else. And so if I'm a buyer and I'm comparing all of these websites and they all sound the same, then I don't know which choice to make, or it makes it a lot, we're certainly not going to stand out if you're an MSP that doesn't differentiate. So one of the most common mistakes that we make, or that MSPs make, is leading with the how. So we do cybersecurity, we do this instead of the why or for whom. MSPs really need to speak their client's language. So instead of we offer managed services, it's we keep your law firm running without downtime, or help you increase your billable hours because of no downtime. Things that really speak their language. So we start typically at the business growers by helping them identify their vertical focus. Sometimes they don't want to go dedicated to one vertical, which is fine. But we do, want to understand who they best serve and how they do it, so that we can craft messaging that speaks directly to the problems that that particular audience faces, using language that speaks to them, not just what makes sense to us. So that's how really you go from just another MSP to one of the, the only choice for a company like, a healthcare provider or a law firm.
Right, exactly. And you often recommend using case studies, proof points, authority content to support brand clarity. What does that look like in practice, and how does it speed up the sales cycle?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked that. I like to think of authority content as digital credibility. It's almost better than that referral. So case studies show proof, testimonials build trust, and it honestly, you can say all day long how great you are, but it is not relevant unless they have someone else. They hear someone else in their seat, in their position. A director of IT for enterprise company. When you hear somebody like that telling the story, that really makes a big difference. And I think this is honestly case studies. These types of proof points are almost sometimes the most labor intensive to build, because you're having to ask someone to sit in front of a camera. And I feel like we overcomplicate it a little bit. Like today, Mark, the two of us got on this Teams, call. We're
Yes.
recording. It took us 2 seconds to get connected. It doesn't have to be a theatrical production.
No.
And I think that's really what we, sometimes get in our heads, that it has to be super fancy. So in practice, this really could be a short video with a happy client before and after, blog piece, a 1-page PDF for your sales team to drop in an email. It really could be and should be a part of your follow-up process. It's not just content, it's really sales enablement. And the best thing to do, if you're really asking my tip, is to get a couple of those. There's a book by Marcus Sheridan called They Ask, You Answer.
Yep.
And reading that book, sitting down with your leadership team, and each of you're crafting, here are the top 15 to 20 questions that my prospects are asking me on a regular basis, because they're also Googling these things. They're also asking these things online, and then learn how to address those problems that you're solving with case studies, testimonials, and video content. That's really how to put a good trust building authority type strategy in place with these types of proof points.
That's great. I mean, in terms of so artificial intelligence, I mean, you've made the case that MSPs can't just adopt AI; they need to integrate it strategically. What are some of the real-world ways that you've seen AI move the needle for MSP marketing?
Yes, I'm really glad you actually said on. I have a clients-only mastermind that I do once a month, and no one's invited besides clients, because we just sit on it and we brainstorm these types of things. not only AI use cases operationally, but how can we monetize this in our business? So we're having a lot of those conversations. Throwing AI at marketing, I think one of the things I'm learning is we equate AI and marketing as writing emails or writing content, which is fine. I just finished another book recommendation, AI Driven Leadership by Jeff Woods, great book. And it's actually, I'm using it as a training tool for my team to understand that AI really should be our strategic thought partner. I just laid out my board and I saved it in AI. So I have now a project that I can go to, and I've got, some people you may have heard of. So Jeff Bezos is on my board. I've got Jesus on my board, Sarah Blakely, the inventor of Spanx. She's a great female entrepreneur. So Brene Brown, I love some of her vulnerability content. So I've basically created a board of about 13 board members, so I can do strategic decision making without, I don't have that big of a board. I certainly don't have some of those heavy hitters on my board, right? Wow. When it's done right, AI for business strategy is to me the number one reason to use it. But we've used AI to generate, personalized email sequences, automate follow-ups, even build out some really dynamic LinkedIn messaging that works really well. I love the framework that Jeff Woods presented in this book. It's called CRIT, C-R-I-T. And this is what our team is actively using for better output. So it's context first. You give it all the context, all the documents, all the links, tell it exactly what the context of the situation is. Then identify what role you want AI to serve. And I like specifically, for example, if we're writing a piece of email content, I make sure that it knows your role is to be the best MSP copywriter, email copywriting genius. And I'll go plug in a couple of names of people that I really admire. Wow. You have the writing style of these 3 people, and then context, role, interview. Always ask AI to interview you and ask 3 to 5 questions to gain deeper context. And so it's telling you what holes it needs you to plug for it. And then you task. A lot of times we just go straight to the task. But if you do context, role, interview, and then task, then you're getting a much better output. So with content copy, obviously, I recommend joining, like in our mastermind, joining other MSPs. There are a lot of tools. I actually recently blogged about some AI tools with the MSP 501 newsletter that Dave Raffo does. I actually just wrote of some specific tools that I recommend for MSPs who are looking. Obviously, ticketing, you could be utilizing chat to serve your clients better, a lot of those things. But what I really right now am on is for strategic thinking and maximizing as a leader. Maybe you're the CEO and you don't have the bandwidth to really solve the world's problems, enabling your team to use this CRIT framework to help them problem solve. That's what I think the number one thing right now that I would recommend is.
Wow, I'm going to have to try some of these things.
Laura. Yeah. I'm on a big AI kick right now, so you hit me at the right time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate this. I'm learning a lot from this conversation. I thank you. So, Laura, are there any specific use cases like content creation, lead scoring, or automation where AI has delivered clear wins for your clients?
Yes, I love, obviously, like in our SEO processes, we have a lot of AI tools built in, but our goal is to get our clients ranked top of search for all of these keywords in particular markets, for example. So what we're able to do, and I know that, there's a lot of back and forth between, okay, do we write content only to appeal to these keywords, and then the content's not that great and nobody really wants to read it because it's keyword stuffing or, whatever, or do we generate that authentic content that I just mentioned by taking like that Marcus Sheridan book, They Ask You Answer, and listing those top 20 things that are, our customers or prospects are asking, and then answer those with content. Well, with AI, you can say, hey, use that CRIP framework that I just talked about, which we do, and we say, hey, here are the keywords we want to rank for, but here are the top 20 questions that our clients are asking. Can you create a content strategy based on both of those things? So we're taking our own tools that we know and trust to create those keywords, and we really want to understand, and not to get too in the weeds on search engine optimization, but we really want to understand not just what keywords we want to rank for, but search volume. Like if we want to rank for this keyword and only 3 people every year are searching for it, then why do we care about that keyword? Which we have those conversations all the time. So we want to take high volume, good keywords that are going to really get us some search volume, and then pair that with that top 20 questions strategy. And really another specific use case, like you asked, is just that ability to streamline your content, streamline your processes. You can do now with AI, in terms of headcount and hiring, you really don't need a content team. You need one person who can use AI well. And actually, one of the things that I said recently I think it was another podcast, is AI is not going to replace employees. Someone who knows how to use AI well is going to replace an employee that doesn't know how to use AI well. So if you don't have a large marketing team from a use case standpoint, don't have the time to create content, with the right tools, you can use AI to generate blog articles, email nurture sequences, ad copy, social media content, all of those things. So I like to say, think of AI as your strategist and your content assistant, and it really gets you 70% of the way there.
Awesome. Thank you. And so for MSPs doing random acts of marketing, what's the first move? Random acts of marketing. Yeah. So what's the first move you'd recommend to create something that's consistent, measurable, and scalable?
Yes, I call it spitball marketing. So that's another term for it. Random acts of marketing, spitball marketing. It's starting with the foundation. This is not the fun, flashy answer, but it's the most appropriate answer. Your messaging that we just talked about, not, you're positioning yourself, the way that you say what you do, the way your team understands the advantages that you have over your competition. If you know your messaging and your buyer journey, how long it takes them to make the decision and what they're experiencing along the way, those are the most important things. So getting clear on who you serve, what they care about, and how you solve their problems, really understanding that allows your marketing to be a lot more focused. And then from there, you can build a system. That might mean email nurture sequences. And because you know your messaging and your buyer journey, you're not sending emails that they don't resonate with, because you've identified that. So then your email gets better, your content, your monthly thought leadership content. I produce, and I've seen you produce content too. You'll know what types of content to develop, and then you track what works from there, because what gets measured, what gets improved, right? So I think that, again, it's not flashy, but to avoid random acts of marketing, you've got to start with knowing exactly who your buyer is, and then utilizing those pain points to it doesn't have to be 1,000 pain points. Maybe it's 4, and you just repeat over and over in your messaging and your marketing.
Excellent. And you've written about the importance of brand consistency across websites, social media, Google profile, etc. What's the impact when that consistency is missing, and how can MSPs tighten it up quickly?
Yes. Really, inconsistency is what kills trust. So I've always, like, anyone that's come to me and said, I want to run Google ads, and sometimes we go to the doctor and we self-diagnose, we say, hey, here's what I want to do. So I have a lot of, MSPs who come to me and say, hey, here's what I want to do. If you want to spend money on Google and drive ad traffic back to a website that doesn't speak to your target consumer, doesn't convert well because it doesn't make sense to them, then you are basically flushing that money down the toilet, because we want, if you're not, if your messaging isn't consistent throughout, your website says one thing, your Google listing has outdated hours or old pictures, then prospects start to wonder if they can't manage their own stuff, then how are they going to be able to manage, like in my world. So to tighten it up, do a quick audit. And I always say, like, when my son was, 2 and we would go into Target, he knew exactly where we were going because he had seen the little doggy and the Target. There's consistency throughout. So making sure that what your sales team is interfacing with, your collateral, your tone of voice, your tagline, like your logo, using those brand guidelines that take time, and some people wonder if they're really valuable, but using that to make sure that everything is aligned. If you notice, the strongest brands in the world, they stick to a solid and clear brand voice and look and feel. And a lot of times, especially when we're MSPs head down in the work, we don't feel like that matters. And that's actually what can differentiate you from a competitor, is looking like you have things together, right?
Wow. Yeah, indeed. I mean, I guess, yes, as technical people, we sometimes tend to overcomplicate. And I guess what you're saying is that just lift our head above the complication and just
right.
keep
Well,
it simple.
it definitely builds trust. I mean, anybody that is doing your IT and running that much of an important part of your business, you want to know they've got it together. And if you look like a hot mess, then no one's going to trust you, or if they do, they'll, that it just, I'd say it really just reduces that gap that you've got to fill in the sales process. So
yeah. Good point. And you recently published an article about boosting success with AT&T Partner Exchange. What unique marketing opportunities does that ecosystem open up for MSPs, and what do many of them overlook?
I'm glad you asked that. Jeff and our friends at AT&T at the Partner Exchange will be really glad that we're talking about them today. But it's a huge credibility boost. I don't know, I don't think, although maybe your end users and your business owners that you're selling to might have beef or a past or history with AT&T, they, from a communication standpoint, I think AT&T Partner Exchange realized that, and that's why they put these MSPs and IT providers in the driver's seat to own that relationship, because no one has complaints about the stability and the reliability of the product. I mean, we know that the AT&T network is good as gold. So it's really a huge credibility boost for MSPs. I think a lot of MSPs right now may think that they're hey, we're reselling AT&T already, but maybe don't know the actual benefits to the AT&T Partner Exchange, which is different than just a reselling relationship. It's that top line revenue added to your business, which helps you in so many ways. But being an MSP backed by one of the biggest names, in network, I feel like we underutilize that. A lot of MSPs are underutilizing that. They might have it, on their website, or maybe not at all. But what we do is, thanks to the AT&T Partner Exchange, including us as one of their approved marketing resources, we can help clients turn that AT&T relationship into a real differentiator with co-branded landing pages, slide decks and social content that highlights that like we talked about, the AT&T network and the reliability and strength of that. So, and also, to boot, they provide, unlike any MDF program that I've seen, this AT&T Partner Exchange offers these market development funds, and that can be used to help pay for your marketing campaign. So ads, webinars, events, anything that you're doing to generate more opportunities, both for you and AT&T, the Partner Exchange helps with that. So I've never seen, I've had a lot of clients in other MDF programs. I've never seen anything like it. I think it's beautiful that they allow the IT solution provider to own the relationship and then allow them to create that top line revenue. So it builds, instant credibility, and then you get the MDF funds to go with it. So it's a great opportunity for those who have not taken advantage of it.
Absolutely, Laura. I couldn't say it any better than you. I just thoroughly endorse what you just said, and put a plug for our good friend Jeff Zimmerman. If anyone's interested in signing up for this fantastic program, Jeff Zimmerman is the guy to talk to. We'll put his details up.
We have to mention him because he'll listen to it and say something.
He will. So. Hi, Jeff. Very good. Uh, okay, for MSPs that are part of programs like AT&T Partner Exchange, how should they think about co-branding, positioning, or leveraging their partnership credibility in their marketing?
Yeah, I think first get really clear on what you're allowed to say. Sometimes, they want you, like AT&T is really great about, they don't necessarily want their logo front and center. They want yours. So that's also beautiful. They want, they want to make sure they're included, but they're not trying to take up the premium space. So, understand what you're allowed to say. And then, any product, I know AT&T would be happy to be featured, a featured logo on their case studies, mentioning the partnerships in your cold emails, adding the logos to your proposals, if you're allowed to. So, positioning wise, in my opinion, you leveraging a big, whether it's AT&T or any other company, but specifically AT&T, you're able to say like, hey, we're small enough to be nimble, beautiful thing, but we're backed by the infrastructure of the most, widely known and appreciated national carrier out there. So I think that blend of personal service kind of messaging on top of powered by AT&T, which that's the specific language that they like you to use in email copy and things. Powered by AT&T is a really killer combo for some of these MSPs that may not, who wants to go build a network? Nobody. But not offering that. We talked about this on the podcast, your podcast on my
Yes.
on mine. But an MSP who doesn't offer connectivity or even voice, you're really leaving a foothold for your competitors, in my opinion. So, and yours too, based on what we talked about,
yes,
right?
Exactly. Totally agree on that. Yeah. So coming back to AI, are there any specific AI tools you've seen MSPs successfully use to systemize referrals, nurture leads, or improve engagement?
Yes, I think chatbots, AI-powered chatbots are huge. Adding those to your website. We actually have our own sales and marketing specific CRM that we offer to our clients. And so we're allowed to integrate that chatbot right in for them. And then, can even set up communication to, for that to become a support ticket if need be. But a lot of times you can train the AI to handle tier 1 issues like right then and there,
Wow.
So that's a huge way to maximize efficiency. And we, again, kind of going back to our CRM, if you don't have a CRM that is automating follow-ups and lead nurture flows using AI logic, we sent this email about this particular thing and got this much percentage of engagement from these users. Like, you can utilize AI in a CRM to sequence follow-ups appropriate for the type of engagement you get. And that's really where your communication gets a lot more personalized. So splitting up, let's just say, the people who didn't engage at all in this email, let's not focus on them for the next one, let's focus on the 30% that did or whatever. So personalizing SMS, email, messages based on behavior, engagement, or where somebody is in the pipeline. You mentioned lead scoring earlier, and that's something that we do to allow our sales teams, our client sales teams, to focus on the right people at the right time. And if with a good CRM, AI tools can help you do that. Here, bubble up for me the top folks that I need to reach out to this week based on their level of engagement in the CRM.
Wow. And so what AI pitfalls should MSPs watch out for, especially when adopting it for sales or marketing?
I think, honestly, letting AI drive without a good roadmap. And I feel like MSPs typically are head down, owners, founders, CEOs, COOs. A lot of times we stay head down, and then you've kind of got people on your teams using AI based on what they feel is appropriate. And if you're not, like I said earlier, using that CRIT framework allows you to kind of train the model. And a lot of times, I see teams that are, oh yeah, we use AI, but it's not done in a systematic way. It's not done, as thoughtfully maybe as it could be done. So you almost have a little bit of like self-sabotage going on because you've got different users using different tools for different reasons. So
Yeah.
I would say as an owner or founder, make sure that you're driving the roadmap and setting the goals for AI so that your AI implementation doesn't go off the rails a little bit. I think that's and then also over automating can, especially in content, can really make your brand feel cold or generic. There are tools out there that allow you to place content in there and ask if AI is detectable. So making sure that you just put like a clear roadmap and then guardrails around things so that as your business grows and scales, you don't have a chaotic, AI implementation in place. I'd say that's, and using it more as a co-pilot, not the driver. Remember, the humans still need to be in charge, right? For the most part. But using it strategically and making sure that you have a good roadmap, I would say is kind of the pitfall, way to avoid the pitfall.
Excellent. So Laura, so thank you very much today. Look, this has been an excellent conversation. Really, really appreciate it. I've learned a lot today myself, and I'm really keen to come and try some of these things you've mentioned. So what would you say to our audience now, who may be interested in delving deeper into this, or maybe even working with you on this? What would you say to them about what you have to offer, and what they might do next if they're wanting to continue in this area?
I'm glad you asked that. I think the best thing, we actually offer a complimentary 360-degree audit. And it is an investment of my team's time, but I enjoy it's one of my favorite things that we do because we essentially give MSPs a snapshot of their current digital health and then tell them where to prioritize. Here's what I would do. Because marketing can get overwhelming. I mean, you need it all, right? And truth, you do need it all. So it is hard to know what to invest in first, but I'll provide the link so that you can share it if you'd like. And that allows anyone to book time on my calendar. We set it far enough out to where my team actually spends several hours working on the audit. And then I present to you kind of what your next steps in marketing should be. And I'm happy to offer that to any of your listeners. It's a great tool, and it's probably the best way to figure out where you need to get started.
Excellent. Well, Laura, thank you very, very much. Really appreciate you and the time you've spent with us today. I've learned so much, and I'm at Datagate, we're all for helping MSPs be more successful, and I couldn't think of a person more suitable to have in that light.
Well,
and this has been great material. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.